Hey George, can you hear me okay? Let me know if you can hear me. I sure hope that this is okay. Awesome. Also, let me know if you guys can see my Photoshop. Yeah, I think there is a little bit of a delay, but yeah. Just let me know if you guys can see me. Okay, you can see my face and my okay. Well, maybe don't care about my face. I'm just starting early in case I run into technical issues because I've never streamed live before from YouTube. I'm actually figuring all this out as we speak. So, awesome, Kimberly. Thanks. How do I lower the bit rate? Mm, does anyone know how I can lower my bit rate to whatever this thing is recommending me? Hmm. Where is the stream setting? Open widget. Okay. Um. Yeah, but I think there's a bit of a lag, and this thing keeps popping up. This warning here. Hey, what's up, Delaware? Bashot Gaming. That's a good name. My monitor, man, ever since we talked about the whole monitor setting and colors and whatnot, I've been looking into getting a different monitor, but I feel like that's something I don't need to spend on right now. Also, I don't need 4K. I don't know why I bought 4K. Other than the fact that it was on sale on Black Friday. Hey, Carlos. Bright moon last night. Yeah, you know what? If this turns out well, I may just do this every month when there's a full moon because there's a unless you love imaging the moon, there's almost no reason to image out there. I find that even with narrowband filters, or in my case, dual narrowband filters, um, it sucks with with the moon. Hey, DJ Reagan. Um, all right, well, it's 7 now. I figure I'll give other people maybe a few more minutes to join. I don't really have a definite end time, but I figure an hour will be enough. But if people want to go over an hour, I'm fine with that as well. Maybe while we wait for a few more people to join, I don't know if they're going to join, but maybe we can talk about how each of us started with astrophotography. So I'll go first. I started astrophotography. Hey, you're welcome, DJ Reagan. Happy to do it. But I started, astrophotography right after Common EOIs. I had a decently sized reflector before. I think it was like a 700 millimeter focal length reflector, and that was purely for visuals. But I got bored of that pretty quickly. So, why is there a thing in front of my face? Oh well, I can't get rid of it. Yeah, so I got bored of doing visual pretty fast because I thought even if I could find the moon, even if I could find Saturn and Jupiter, they just sort of look like fuzzy dots. At least at that focal length of 700 millimeters. So I had a reflector, kind of stopped using it, but it wasn't until Common EOIs where I attempted to go and hunt. Hey Jessica, welcome. I started hunting for Common EOIs, and first of all, I thought the hunt was really cool. Even though sometimes I went out in the middle of nowhere and it was kind of terrifying. But when I got when I did eventually find common eagle eyes, I looked at my picture through my DSLR and it was just a fuzzy dot. And I looked at other people's images like George. I was like, man, my images don't compare. So I was like, so I started to, I got into this hobby because I was disappointed with what I was able to capture during Neowise. So I started to learn all that I can by myself. It was the beginning was really rough, as all of you would know by now. And so I think that's probably the main reason why I started to do videos and maybe even this tutorial, because you know, when I was starting right after Common Eagle Eyes, I would have loved. No, George, your Common Eagle Eyes was pretty cool, man. But anyways, yeah, as I was saying, I wanted to, you know, do my best to, you know, help other people get started, because it's very, like, the beginning is very frustrating. So I see that, let's see, James Wood said Neowise got him started as well. That's awesome. I was wondering if anybody else was doing astrophotography before Neowise. If so, then you guys are probably more advanced than I am. So I would love to hear and learn from you guys as well. I had no idea what stacking was. I didn't even know people do that. I just thought, you know, all the pictures that I saw online was just one shot, and that was it. But little did I know that each of these images from these awesome photographers takes hours, if not days, to complete. Okay. So I guess should pop over to so I'll try to frame this so I can still see the chat in the background. So Portal 3, good God, man, I don't even know what that looks like. Man, we should trade skies. Goodness, Portal 3. Hey, Heather. Heather is it's from a Heather is the leader of a very popular mobile game, and we're part of the same clan, and she's been really supportive of me through this whole astrophotography thing. And so welcome, Heather, and thanks for coming. Okay, so couple of things. Number one, let me know if you guys have a hard time hearing me. And number two, let me know as I go through this tutorial that I'm going a little too fast, or if I'm going too slow, or, you know, any issues that you guys have on your end. If I don't get to it, just keep typing it in the chat, and I will eventually see it. So I think I have a question for you guys. Do you guys want to see the process from beginning to the very end, or do you guys just want to see how I put together the sort of complete sets of data and merge the three completed sets of data together? I'll give you guys a moment to type it into the chat. So do you guys want to see me start from the beginning, or just pick up where the three sets of data are complete? By overview, did you, Greg? By overview, did you mean from beginning to end, or when I have the 3 data sets completed? Or what I could do is to use one data set, use that as an example to sort of do a start to end. Okay, Amy wants start from the beginning. So I could use one set of the data and start from the beginning, because the steps are going to be very similar between the different sets of data, except that for the core, you don't need to touch it as much. Okay, so it seems like most people would want a beginning to the end. Okay, so what I will do is use the broadband data. Yeah, I'm not going over. Yeah, stacking is another video on its own. If I rush through stacking, I don't think you guys will learn much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a stacked broadband data, and I will process that from the beginning. So let me know if you guys can see my Photoshop clearly. And I'll try my best to narrate as I go, to go over some of the steps. So what you're looking at now, it's just a stacked image, straight out of Deep Sky Stacker. I'm not using PixInsights. I do have a trial for it, but yeah, I'm not using it yet. But so most of what I'm going to be showing you, it's going to be in Photoshop. So just so I'm going to begin, and just let me know if I'm going too fast. Again, you can just type it in the chat, and I should be able to see it. So the first thing that I do, I like to make a copy of the background layer, because if anything goes wrong, I can just start from scratch. And I guess I'll type in some of the hotkeys that I'll be using. So copy layer equals control J, new layer from image equals control shift alt E. I just realized how awkward it is to type to talk out loud. Control Shift Alt E. Oops, that's not what I want. All right, so I've made a copy of the background layer. The first thing I like to do is, especially on an image that is already pretty bright. Now Orion is usually really bright, so on a different nebula you may have to stretch it a few times before you can even see anything. But with Orion, it's already pretty bright. So what I like to do is sort of set my my black points. I wonder if there's a delay. Yeah, your video image. I don't know how to get rid of that. Let me see if I can get rid of my face. Does anyone know how to get rid of my face? Yes, I've always used Photoshop. Well, I started using Photoshop at the beginning of astrophotography. Before astrophotography, I I have no actual photography experience, um, and definitely no Photoshop experience. So everything that I've learned is since picking up astrophotography after common EOIs. How the hell do I get rid of my face? Can I get rid of this? No. I'm gonna type it in the chat. Does anyone know how to get rid of my face? Edit? No, I don't. How many years? Not years, months. So my first image was probably, my first actual image was last September or August. So maybe just a little over half a year, or maybe 7 months. Okay, well, would stopping the webcam do it? Let's try it. Yeah, months. I'm gonna stop the webcam. Okay, stop the webcam. How's that? All right. Okay. So I guess you guys would just hear me talk. Now that we're done with my face, gosh, I don't really want to upload this anymore. We spent 15 minutes dealing with my face. Okay. So as I was saying, the first thing I want to do is to copy the background layer as sort of like a base, and then I want to set my black points and my white points. And the way I do that is I go up to Image, Adjustments, and the Threshold. What this does is that you can slide this bar towards where the data is, and as you slide towards it, it's going to get brighter and brighter. Now you don't have to go all the way to the data. You can like sort of hit the beginning of the data, and the whole point is for this is to highlight anything that is bright or anything that is that has data in it, because our first selection is to select a patch of the area where it's truly dark. So by sort of forcing the picture to be highlighted, I can see what area is truly black. So if I do this, let's just say that I want to pick this area, right? So if I were to zoom in, So right now it's completely black, but to make sure that, you know, I'm not selecting any bright area, I can turn this threshold layer off, and I can see that, okay, yeah, truly, there's nothing there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select, you want to go into this eyedropper tool and then right click and select color sampler tool. Once you select color sampler tool, I want you guys to pay attention to this info tab right here, because as soon as I click an area, you're going to see some numbers pop up. Right now there's nothing here because I haven't clicked anything. So I'm just going to click this spot because it's telling me that it's completely black. So as soon as I clicked it, well, there should be some numbers. I don't know why it's not. I love it when, you know, when you're all by yourself, everything works as it should, but then when you share it with somebody else, nothing works. So I have selected my my dark area. Now I'm going to select my my white point. So to select the white point, I don't need the threshold. I am just going to select a star that is not too bright, but bright enough. The theory is that you want to select a star that is similar to our sun, but I can't pick out which one is similar to our sun. So I just pick a star that isn't too bright and pick a star that isn't too dim. So I am going to try this one. And also a way to tell is that, you know, when you select a star, you can go over to this RGB area. When you hover over a star, you're going to see some numbers being populated. I usually like my white point to hover at around 200 for the RGB. So that's good enough. Yeah, I'll just pick this spot. Okay, so now that I've set my white point, I can get rid of this threshold layer. I don't need it anymore. Okay, then I'm just going to copy up, I'm going to make a new layer. Now the actual editing can begin. So the first thing I usually like to do is look at my my histogram. It's already telling me that most of my data is to the left. That means that, you know, I don't want to do any more level adjustment at this point, because if I were to bring this over further into the data, I'm going to start clipping. And I recently learned that when people say clipping, it means that you're basically throwing away data. It can never be recovered. So because I am already this close to my my dark points, my first step is not going to be level, but instead I am going to use the curve adjustment to start bringing out some of the details. Now for curves, I use something called an Arcsinh Curve. I should put a link to this in the description. It's basically like a preset, and the reason why this preset curve is so good is because it's able to bring out the details, and most of the time it does a really good job at shielding your stars from being blown out. So that's why I like using it. Okay, I'm gonna click OK. And now I also have a habit of naming all of my layers. So this is gonna be curve 1 Arcsinh 10. Then I'm going to start a new layer. Control Shift Alt E. The next step that I'm going to do is look at my histogram, and I want to do my best to make sure that these colors are lined up in one peak. And that is why I did the black points and the white points earlier, because you can sort of get a numerical value of these peaks. So right now it's telling me that my red is 10 arbitrary points ahead of the green, so I need to make this all 33 because the black point only goes down and then the white point only goes up. So, and for the white points, I guess I want everything to be 239. There's no hard science to this. It's really just how you like it. I just like to start everything as even as possible. So I will do this by going into the levels adjustment, and you can adjust the individual channels by itself. So for the red, I'll start with the red first. It's telling me right now it's at 43 darks, and I want it to get to 33. So I'm going to slide this over until it's 33. And you'll see that as I get closer and closer to 33, the background is not as red. So here it is before touching it, and here it is as I slide it towards that 33 value. And you can also fine tune this by just typing in the adjustment. So right now I think I want to go with 13. No, the other way, 11. Okay. Then I'm not going to touch the green darks because it's already at 33. But I am going to adjust my blues. You can also see that it's at 43, and you can also look at the histogram. My blues is a little bit ahead. So I'm going to do the same as I did with my reds and just drag this over closer to the 33 mark. And as you can see that the closer I am to 33 or whatever lowest value that you have, the more neutral my background looks. Next thing I want to adjust is my my white points. Now this time around, it's going to be the other way around. You want it to be closer to the highest value. So in this case, I'm not going to touch the reds because the reds is the highest value. So I'm going to start with the green. So I'm going to bring this over until it starts hitting 239. Again, there's no hard science to this. It's really whatever you like, and this is how I like to process. And you'll see that as I brighten up the greens, I've also dragged the dark points out of the 33 zone. So I will have to do another drag from the darks. I'm gonna make this 33. So as you can kind of see that this is sort of, you kind of have to play around with this. Oh, nope, I don't want that. Okay. Feel free to stop me, ask questions, type whatever you want into the chat. If I'm going too fast or whatever. So at this point, you can see that my darks are all at 33. Oh, oops, I went the other way around. Sorry. Okay. All right, so this is actually my least favorite step when it comes to Photoshop. It's balancing your background. There's a lot of trial and error. This is, I honestly, I think this is probably the most time-consuming part. Again, you don't have to get it perfect. This is just how I've done it. So as you can see now, my numbers are even, and you can also see my peak down here is it's fairly aligned. So I'm gonna hit OK, and I just want to show you the before and after. So before, my background is all kinds of red and purple, and then now after the color balance. So I'm going to call this color balance 1 because I'm likely going to do this again. Now that I have some wiggle room, I am going to do a levels adjustment. Now, some of you may notice that I haven't cropped my image. And that is because I may need to do alignment later with my other sets of data. So I don't want to crop anything yet. So for now, I'm going to do a level adjustment, and I'm going to bring the dark points as close as I can to the data. And from experience, usually when you see like small little tiny peaks of data on the left side of the peak, you can clip those because that's really just your stacking artifacts. But for now, I'm not going to do that because I'm not cropping yet, so I'm just going to err on the side of caution. Okay. Level 1. So this completes the first stretch. And I'm actually going to merge these layers and call it stretch number 1. I'll show you a before and after one stretch. So this is bone stock original, straight out of Deep Sky Stacker, and this is after one stretch. So the second stretch, it's going to be the same process. So I'm going to start with my Arcsinh Curve adjustment. Again, the curve will bring out more details. Curve 2, Arcsinh 10, a new layer, and then I'm going to check my color balance. Make sure that your histogram stays on color. It's just easier to look at. So right now I need to adjust the green a little bit. So I think 1 is enough. Yeah. So I'm just making sure that my numbers are even. Call it a CB2, color balance 2. Now I'm going to do a levels adjustment. So I'm certain that, you know, this is just stacking artifact. Yes. Yes. See, I told you, George is the established photographer here, so he can break down the science behind it. So now I'm just doing the levels adjustment to restore the black points. And as I mentioned before, I know that these little like tiny peaks are just stacking artifacts. So I don't care if I clip them. So I'm just going to clip them right now. Just make sure that you don't go all the way here, because now you're really, you know, clipping data within the nebula. So yeah, I think this is good. Okay. So this is my levels. So once again, I'm going to merge these layers and just call this stretch number 2. And usually I can do this maybe 4 times at most. So this is bone stock, 1 stretch, 2 stretch. So as you can see, I'm bringing up more of the nebulosity, and I'm taming the background more and more. So now I'm going to do the same thing. Do another curve adjustment. So once you sort of get your process down, it's a lot of rinse and repeat. Just sort of try to remember where you are in your process, so you don't lose track of where you are. Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna adjust the reds, green, and also depending on which filter you use, you may have more green or red or blue cast. So this color balance it really just depends on which filter you use. This was an image using the Optilon L Pro. Okay. So once again, I know that this small sliver of data is mostly stacking artifact. I'm gonna get rid of them anyways. So. So how do I know that I'm done stretching an image? Usually I can tell by either this set of number. The closer I am to 255, that's like the whitest of the white. The closer I know that I'm done to stretching. And also another way to kind of tell is if I do another curve adjustment, you'll notice that the background, it's really bright. It's almost gray at this point. Maybe I can still go one more. Let me try it. The thing about processing is that you can never, or it's hard to recreate what you did the previous time. So the fact that I'm doing this live, even though I've done it before, it's really brand new to me. So let me see if I can lower this. Yeah, I guess I could. Yeah, I can do one more stretch here. Okay, levels, and then do my color balance. Okay. Okay, so stretch number 4. Okay. Now I don't think I can do any more, so I am just going to. Yeah, I'm not even gonna do that. I'm getting way too close to the actual data. So the next thing I'm going to do is use something called an S curve. What that is I'm going to purposely bring out more details of the nebulosity, while simultaneously darken the background sky a little bit, but not to the point where I take away data. So there are a couple ways that you can do this. Number one, because we won't be using a Arcsinh Curve anymore, I have to create a star mask. And what a star mask is basically a mask that will cover the stars. So then as I do the S curve, I'm only brightening up the nebulosity and not these already pretty bright stars. So what I'm going to do, I'll start over. So I'm going to create a new layer from my latest stretch. I'm going to call this star mask. Then I'm going to go to color range. And I am going to go with highlights. Now highlights should automatically select the brightest spots. And you can play with the fuzziness to see how much you want to select, and also you can play with the range to, you know, kind of fine tune just how much you want to select. And I wanted to select as little of the nebula as possible. I only wanted to select these like I'm only concerned about these 5 or 6 stars, to be honest. So I'm gonna go with this. Yeah, so, and then if I were to zoom in, like something over here, you'll notice that it hasn't selected the entire star and, you know, the glow around it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go into select, modify. George, I am on 16-bit. I am going to expand, and by how many pixels? I usually start with 2 and see how much bigger the selection will become. Okay, that's a little better, but this is still picking up almost next to nothing. So I'm gonna do it again. Go to select, modify, expand, do another 2 pixel. And you kind of want to, you know, scroll around and make sure that, you know, you're selecting all of the glow and halo. So this is kind of telling me I need to do one more expansion on my selection. So I'm going to do expand one more time. Yeah, I think this is good enough. And then I am going to feather it. And what feather does is to sort of make the selection a little bit smoother, so it's not as sharp of a selection. I usually just go with 2 or 3 pixels. Okay, so this is pretty good. Let's see. So the next thing I'm going to do, because right now it's selected all of these bright areas in the night in the picture, I'm going to do select inverse. What this does, when you see this marching ants and your star is already selected, you're selecting everything but the bright stars. So as soon as you hit the inverse, you're selecting everything but the bright stars. So I'm going to do Control C or copy. You can also do it up here, edit and copy. But I'm used to using the shortcut. So I'm just going to do copy. And then I'm going to go back down to my stretch number 4 and make a new layer off of that. And then I'm going to go down here to this like camera looking thing. I'm going to click it and it will add a new mask, a layer mask. And depending on, you know, how your Photoshop is set up, for me, anytime I copy a layer mask and then I go and create a layer mask, my selection would already be here. I don't know why it does that. because I know for other people, this is another step that you need to do. So that's something weird. So as you can see, by the way, to get to this layer mask, you have to press Alt and Shift. So what this is telling me is that all the black stuff that you see here, it will not be affected by my adjustment. So I'm going to go back to my actual image. And then I'm going to go into Adjustment, Curves. And then I'm going to apply an S-curve. I usually like to start at this point, just brighten up the area between my, I think this is still the shadow area. I like to brighten up the area between my shadow and my lights. I'm not going to touch the highlights, and I'm not going to touch the darks. So, oh, I am going to touch the darks. I'm going to lower this a little bit. So this is generally my S-curve. Now everyone has different kinds of S-curve depending on what they like. Some people like to go really aggressive. I don't like doing that because I find that to be too harsh. So this is again one of those things that will take a few times to take effect. Oh, by the way, make sure that you turn off this layer mask, because once you turn this layer off, then you can actually see what you're doing. So I'll go back to what I was saying earlier, that people have different S curves. Like if I go really aggressive, then it's so I find this to be a bit too aggressive too soon, and you can already see some of the artifacts because of the layer mask. Remember, I'm telling Photoshop to not touch these areas. So I don't want to do this too aggressively, too fast. Yeah. So I'm going to do this slowly. I generally apply this S-curve maybe 5 times. So right now what I'm doing, I'm copying the same layer mask into my second layer of S-curves. And by the way, I'm going to call this S-curve number 1. And I'm going to call this S-curve number 2. And I'm going to do another curves. So I don't know if the YouTube compression algorithm will let you guys see I don't know if you guys can see the difference, but if I were to undo the first S-curve, you can tell that the nebulosity is a little bit fuzzier and my background is also a little bit grayer. So basically, the more I do this S-curve, the more of the nebulosity will stand out. And also, I am already starting to see some artifacts. So actually, what I'm going to do, I am only going to do one S-curve adjustment. And this is another reason why I like to have these layers, because if I don't like it, I'll just delete it. And I'm back to where I was. So I hope you guys can see a little bit of difference. Depending on what I image, about minimizing stars, and I think it's a personal taste, I actually like having stars in my images. It sort of gives me a sense of wonder. It gives me a sense of perspective. Personally, I do not like starless photos. It's a little bit too unnatural for me. Now, there are other images where I do use the minimize tool, simply because the whole field is littered with stars. But when you use a longer focal length, you're so zoomed into the object that there's not many stars around the area because you're super zoomed in. So in this case, I'm not going to do any star minimization. And so as far as stretching the image, I think I'm done. I guess what I want to do now is kind of show you or walk you through what I've done so far. So if I turn all these layers off and start from the beginning, this is my base, my background. This is after just one stretch. This is after a second stretch. And the theme here is that the more I stretch it, within reason, the more of the nebulosity you'll see. After 3 stretch, after my 4th stretch, and now after the S curve where I deliberately just brighten up the nebula and darken up the background sky just a bit. The next thing you can do is go into camera raw filter. By the way, my post-processing process is very rudimentary. I know there are people that are far more advanced than what I do, but this is sufficient for me. So when you go into, sorry, that may have been too fast. The next step that I do, I'm going to call this camera raw edit. Camera raw is a good place for you to do any sort of like last minute touch-ups. So if you go to filter, select camera raw filter, it's going to bring up this whole other set of menu. When you go into the basics, you can play around with the temperature of your image. I usually don't mess with this at all. Yeah, camera raw is really good and really convenient. Thank you. Yeah, I hope that I'm able to help you guys out with Photoshop. But yeah, I know people that can, they can process their entire image in camera raw. So I think that's pretty awesome. But I'm not up to that level. Exposure, it literally changes the exposure of your image. I usually don't touch this ever. So let's see. You can play around with this, texture and, clarity. I usually don't touch this stuff either because I think it's too artificial. This is not if I increase texture to 100%, this is not what I see. I think this could be an interesting artistic interpretation, but not for me. I like my objects to look as natural as possible, and I usually don't touch the vibrance layer or the vibrance adjustment because I don't really like to, if I'm doing a true color editing, I don't like to introduce colors where there wasn't before. So vibrance, I don't touch it. Saturation, I think this can look cool, but it's not really what I capture. So once again, I don't touch it. Curves. Now this curves is very similar to what we've been doing, but you can do one final little adjustment here. So the concept is the same. You brighten up the lights, or you can take out some of the shadows. I think for me the goal here is to make really subtle adjustment and not drastic adjustment like this. Oh, one other thing I want to bring out is that a lot of people, they tend to like to have their background completely black because from our perspective, when we look up in the night sky, we see the night sky as a patch of complete darkness. However, I want to tell you that if you darken up your background too much, you're going to lose a lot of data, because if I restore this back to normal, you'll see that there are hidden nebulosity in like these areas around the nebulosity. See? Like you can see stuff over here, you can see stuff up here. I hope the YouTube compression is allowing you guys to see that. So there is a purpose to darken up the background sky, but just do it by little. You don't want to go all the way to 100 where you lose this stuff, like this stuff up here, this stuff over here. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna do a -10. Details is where you can play with your noise reduction. For some reason I don't have a lot of noise, color noise this time around. So yeah, I'm not gonna play with the noise reduction, the color noise reduction, the actual noise reduction. So I don't like to do this anything beyond 50, because as you can see, from 0 to 50, I can still retain a lot of the details. But as soon as I cross over the 50 mark, it sort of all become blurry. So I don't like that. So if I am going to do noise reduction, I usually just stop at 30. As a matter of fact, I don't think I will do any noise reduction here. So that's about it. I don't mess with the color. I don't mess with the color grading. The optics. If you have really bad vignetting, you can play around. You can play around with this here, but I don't have much vignetting anyways. So yeah, I'm gonna leave it. So as you can see, my camera raw is, the adjustment is very subtle. This is with the adjustment. This is without the adjustment. So again, very subtle. And quite honestly, this picture as it is, it's good to go. I think I am still dealing with some light pollution, like in the lower area, but I'm gonna leave it, because the more I try to get rid of this, the more details that I may delete. So that's how I process an image, and this whole process is very similar to everything that I do. So I think now I can actually go over and start blending the data. So, by the way, let's see how close I am to my original edit. So if I go back over here, this was my original edit. I must have done a little bit more stretching on my original, because I have a little bit more detail, but it is what it is. So what I like to do now So you see that I have 3 tabs open. These are my 3 different sets of data. I have my L Pro, this is my broadband data. My LX, which is my L Extreme. This is my L Extreme data, which I will be using for hydrogen alpha. And if you look over here, you'll see that it's very similar, except that I did an extra noise reduction for the reds because my red was a little bit noisy. So LX is my L Extreme data. Orion core, that's just what it is. It's my core. So actually, this was halfway finished. I am going to bring down the levels adjustment a little bit. And once again, I don't care if I clip these little small peaks of data because that's just stacking usually. And I'm going to do one more curve adjustment. No, that's too much. So I'm going to leave it at that. So this core set of data, it was obtained by taking extremely short exposure for astrophotography. This was taken at about 20 seconds, ISO 800. My broadband data for the nebulosity was taken at I don't remember. Let's go. L Pro. It was taken at 105 seconds. So that's what? A minute and 45 seconds at ISO 800. And you can see the difference at 1 minute plus, you see a lot more of the nebulosity. But at just 20 seconds, you don't see all that nebulosity. But yeah, you're right. It is an art. It is a complete art. And you know what? It's up to your interpretation. So don't let people tell you that you're processing wrong. I think the only hard rule is don't black out your background too much because then you're just actually clipping data. But your process is your own interpretation. But I want to compare the 1 minute plus. So you can see how the core is extremely bright. It's just a bright dot here. But if I look at my 20-second exposure, I see a little bit of the details. And this is why I think Orion is such a good target to practice on, because Orion is big, it's easy to find, it's easily recognized, but it's actually a really difficult target to both capture and process because mainly of this core. So my purpose here is to take my broadband data, add in the hydrogen alpha, all the reds that you see around here, and then use this core only data to restore the core. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to make it easy for myself. I'm going to get rid of this, the one that we just made. My focal length was 805. 805 on a crop APS-C sensor. I'm going to get rid of this. I don't need it anymore. So to make it easy for myself, because I don't need all these layers, what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to Image, Duplicate, and I'm going to select Duplicate Merge Layers Only. So it would then create a new image, but if I move it over here, it's completely the same as the original with all the layers. I just don't want to deal with all the layers, that's all. So I'm going to do the same with all three sets of data. Put over here. Let me know if I'm going too fast. And you know, I do this so that I know that I won't, by mistake, touch my original file and, you know, accidentally save over my original file. So I'm going to close this. All I'm doing right now, I'm just closing the original file with all the different layers on it. I'm only using the final image from those layers. So the first thing I'm going to do is there's no real steps to it. You can do it in any order as you like. But for this particular session, it was easier for me to merge the hydrogen alpha data first and then the core, because for some reason my my place solving for the core was a little bit off. So this picture doesn't completely align with the rest of it. So to save myself some headaches, I'm just going to deal with it last. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to unlock this actually. I'm going to call this, I'm going to make a new copy. I'm going to call this broadband. And then there are a couple things I want to do. I want to make sure that I'm really aligned. So I'm going to copy this entire layer over. L extreme test. Thank you. Yeah, I hope that I'm able to explain this in a manner that is easy for everyone to understand. Because I think that, you know, it wouldn't be helpful if I explain everything in jargons. So what I'm doing right now, I'm just doing a test to make sure that my two images, my L extreme and my broadband data, are aligned. And so what I'm doing right now, I'm just clicking this top layer, the L extreme layer, on and off, and I'm paying attention to these bright stars, and I just want to make sure that they stay in the same place. So if I click off the L extreme layer, I can see that my stars from the broadband layer underneath is still in the same place. So once I can confirm that, I can start, you know, merging the data. By the way, this stuff you see here on the top edge and the right edge. In case you're not familiar, this is the stacking artifact that I was referring to earlier. Don't worry about it because you're gonna crop this out anyways. Most of the time, you're gonna have to deal with some of these stacking error. That's just, I don't know how else to explain it, but it just happens most of the time. And I think most of that has to do with the fact that all of your individual light frames are never truly aligned perfectly. So when your software stacks it, it's going to have some misalignment. But like I said, that's okay because you're going to crop it later. And and this is the reason why I didn't crop the broadband data, because if I crop this and I try to merge the data together, Now this may be out of line because I cropped it earlier, and that's why I didn't. So I am actually going to get rid of this because I'm only putting it here to see if I'm truly aligned. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to my L extreme data, and because I'm only concerned with hydrogen alpha, and hydrogen alpha is mostly red, I am going to go into the channels tab, and this will give me access to the different color channels, red, green, and blue. And once again, because hydrogen alpha is mostly red, I'm going to only select the red, and I am going to copy it. Once I have copied it, I'm going to come over here to my broadband layer, and I'm going to put the red channel from the L extreme into the red channel of the broadband. So now I am pasting. As you can see, it's really bright, and you can already tell that it's got the stacking artifact from the red channel, but that's okay. We don't worry about that. Now, if I go back to the RGB, you'll notice that it is really red. So let me do a before and after. So this is before the copy and paste, and this is after the copy and paste. Don't worry about the overly red background. We can fix that later. And to some people, you may want to keep it there because this is truly how much hydrogen alpha I was picking up. But I think this is a little bit too red for my taste. So I'm going to do a quick level adjustment, but only on the red channel. So to keep myself organized, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make a new layer from the broadband, and then I'm going to purposely call this broadband plus H alpha. And then I am going to redo the copy. Okay. So now, just going over my broadband layer and then my broadband with H alpha. The next thing I'm going to do, because I want to address some of the reds. Now again, once again, this is purely preferences. I am going to go to the levels adjustment, and I am purposely only going to do the red channel. And you'll see that there's already data all the way to the left. And this small piece of data is really all the reds in the background. But because I am purposely trying to minimize that, I will be clipping some of the reds. So as I move the dark slider over, you'll see that my background is not as red as before. But the cool thing is, because I was able to pick up so much hydrogen alpha actual data, that the interior hasn't really been affected, nor has these like outer I guess you can call them waves of nebulosity, of hydrogen alpha nebulosity. Even if I slide it in, they're not really affected. I'm losing some, but I'm okay with that. So I think I'm going to go here. Again, you may want to take out more of the red if you want, but for me, this is okay right now. Okay, so this is with broadband plus AJ plus red levels. Okay, I'm gonna do a new layer. So now I've merged my my broadband data with the hydrogen alpha. So you're probably wondering why not just use the hydrogen alpha data to begin with. I mean, use the L extreme data to begin with, because the L extreme only picks up hydrogen alpha and sulfur 3, and there's hardly I'm sorry, not sulfur, oxygen 3, and there's hardly any oxygen 3 here, and I don't want these stars to be just bright white. I want them to have some natural colors. That is why I am blending my L extreme data with my broadband data. And also with the broadband data, you can see a little bit more of the interior and outer gases. So that's why I decided that, you know what, I'm still gonna capture a ton of broadband data, but I'm gonna merge in a little bit of the hydrogen alpha. Okay, so now the next step, I am going to do the same trick as I did before, because I don't need to have all these layers, because the next step is to merge and restore the core. I'm going to do this. I'm going to duplicate this entire image, and I'm going to call this broadband plus AJ. Okay. So now I can start playing with the core. And again, the first thing I'm going to do is to make sure that I'm aligned. I vaguely remember that I wasn't aligned. So yeah, it's pretty obvious. So this is the core data, and this is my my broadband plus L extreme. If you pay attention to these stars down here, when I turn on the core data again, you're going to see a shift. It's not much, but it's subtle. So what I'm going to do first, I am going to align these two layers. I'm going to go into image. I'm going to go into edit, and I'm going to just use auto align, and auto is fine with me. Okay, you can already see that it's been shifted, and that is because it is trying to match up. Oh, oops! It is trying to match up the core data with my combined HA and broadband data. Okay, so, and I made this version just so I can do the alignment. So what am I going to do here? I might have messed up a little bit. What did I do? Oh man, I love it when I'm live and I kind of forgot what I did or screw up. Let's see. Turn on layer mask. Have core. I did. Okay. That's odd. But that's okay. I can fix this. See, this is the issue when your when your data don't align perfectly. Broadband plus HA. How am I going to do this? Ah, I know what I'm doing. Okay, so I am going to bring this into my Orion core. Yeah, okay, I got it. So I'm able to realign my images, and once again, you just kind of have to play around with your files and see which one lines up with which. So if I click off the merged broadband and L-stream data, you'll see that these stars are lining up. Okay, so I'm good there. So here comes the actual core restoration. I'm going to take this bottom layer with just the core. I'm going to copy it. Yeah, George is right. It doesn't always work. And also one thing I want to mention is that if you're way off, it's definitely not going to work. It will only work if you're like this much off or something like that. So the lesson here is that, make sure that when you photograph your images, make sure you frame it the way that you want, and if you're place solving, make sure that your place solving is working correctly. Otherwise, you're going to run into this problem. What was I doing? Oh yeah, so I am going to copy this original core layer, and I'm going to put it on top of my... Oh, wait a minute. I don't think I need to do that. No, I don't need to do that. And that's why we're live. Okay. All right, so the reason why I have my layers ordered like this is because I need this bottom layer of core. So essentially, when I take away the top layer, the bottom core layer will show up in the overall image. Because remember, my bottom layer of the core has the details of the core. My top layer does not. So the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to use a layer mask on the... I'm just going to recall this. I'm going to call this core only. And then I'm going to call this broadband plus HA. I'm going to create a layer mask by clicking on this camera looking thing. So now any adjustment that I make, on the mask will reveal the bottom layer. And I can show you that because right now, I don't know if you guys can see it, but my selection is actually on the mask layer. If I select the actual layer and I make any adjustments, if I go to my brush, my brush tool. By the way, the brush tool that you want to use something that is soft. So select whatever you want and make sure you turn down your hardness all the way down. 500 pixel, sure, let's start with that. So if I don't have my layer mask selected, this is what's going to happen. And you don't want this. And it's basically painting in whatever color that I have selected. I selected gray, so it's painted in gray. So you don't want that. So you want to make sure that you select your layer mask. And then I'm actually going to make this a little bit bigger. Yes, George is right. Once again, this is why, this is probably why you should be doing photography before you do astrophotography. I'm gonna make this a little bigger. For demonstration purposes, I'm not gonna make this perfect. I'm just gonna, okay, that's good enough. So what I'm going to do, because I have the layer mask selected, and make sure that I have the brush tool, and make sure that my brush is actually soft and round and my hardness is all the way down. And then you can play around with the opacity. You can play around with it. You can start with 100 or you can go all the way down to 10%. That really just depends on how much of the bottom layer you're trying to reveal by clicking on it. So if I do 100, I'm going to click it right here. Actually, that's pretty good. That's kind of what I want, but a little bit too extreme. So let me do a before and after. Before and after. And you can kind of tell already that I'm already starting to reveal the bottom layer of the core. So if I turn off my broadband and L extreme layer, you'll see the core. If I turn it back on, you'll still see everything else, but you can still see the underlying layer, and you can kind of tell in your layer mask you kind of have a hole here. This is the hole that you're sort of punching through. So I don't think I want to do 100%. I maybe want to do 50 and see what happens. And I also don't want to use that big of a brush. Let's do 1200. So I'm gonna do this. Yeah, this is kind of what I want. So you can do this a couple of times. You're gonna do this a couple of times, and you kind of want to make sure that, you know, the difference between your top layer and the bottom layer is not like a sharp line. So just, you know, so something like this is obviously extremely awkward and artificial. So you can play around with this. Again, you know, if this is something that you like, sure, then this would be the end of your processing. But I think this is a little bit too artificial. So I'm going to undo everything. Start at the beginning. Okay. So 50 was a little too harsh. I'm going to go with 30%. And yeah, so now I'm just going to do this until I am satisfied. I think this looks pretty good for how quickly I did it. So that's the concept, at least. So, you know, if your personal taste is telling you that this is done, I've revealed the core. Because once again, if I turn off this broadband layer, by the way, I hope you guys don't hear my stomach growling. Oh man, I love it when we go live. If I turn off this broadband hydrogen alpha layer, you can see the core, and that's what I've done by sort of shaving off the top broadband plus hydrogen alpha layer. So off, on. So now, if you think this is done, if this is within your personal taste, all you need to do is get rid of all these harsh edges, and you can just crop them out. I don't like to crop in too much, because I don't like to artificially zoom in my pictures if I don't have to. So I am only cropping in the extent of the stacking error. So, percenter. Oh, I got a little bit more. Got a little bit more up here. A little bit over here. Wow, I suck at cropping. Either that or I'm blind. Any idea to adjust bottom HA color balance? What do you mean by the bottom? As in over here, you think that there's a little bit too much red? If you think this is still too much red, and you would be right, because if you go back to your histogram, you can see all this red in front of all the other colors. You can do what I did earlier. Go back into your levels adjustment and only select the red channel and just darken it up. As you can tell, the more I move it, the more of the red channel down in the histogram is shifting over to the left. So this is where your personal taste will come in. Do you want more hydrogen alpha data, or do you want less hydrogen alpha data? Any idea how to adjust the core and HA? You mean from my original L Extreme data? If I'm imaging this as a single session or a single data capture, then no. There is no way for me to restore the core if I use the same exposure time. Because my purpose here was not to capture the core. I think this was like 5 minutes of exposure time using the L Extreme. My purpose here was to capture all the surrounding hydrogen alpha gas. So I deliberately use a 5 minutes exposure time because I want to blend all of this extra hydrogen alpha. Where'd it go? Into my broadband data. Finally, how to dodge and burn and yeah, I hope that this helps you. So you can play around with this a little bit more. If you think that this is still a little bit too red, you have every right to think, yeah, this is still a little bit too red. So if you want, you can tone this down a little bit more. So I did this rather quickly, but I kind of want to see how close I am to my original edit. Where's my post-processing? Yeah, my final. Yeah, so this was my original edit. So oh yeah, there's still more editing that I could do here. This is my original edit, and this is the one that I just did today. Yeah, once you learn how to mask, Photoshop is really powerful. But and once again, it's really up to your interpretation. I think in this example, I wanted to see more of the core and a little bit less of the surrounding HA. So in my original copy, I ended up with this. And in tonight's tutorial, I ended up with this. So that's why I said in the beginning that it's really hard to replicate what you've done in Photoshop, because you can almost certainly never do the same thing over again. So yeah, I hope that was helpful. If you guys want, I could stay around and answer any questions that you may have. It doesn't even need to be Photoshop or Orion in particular. You can type whatever questions you have, and if I know or if I'm knowledgeable about it, then I'll try to answer it. It could be about gear or whatever you want. Yeah, I've seen a couple that goes really fast. And when I first started, dude, I didn't use Photoshop. Like, what's a level? What's a curve? What do you mean by clipping? I mean, I just learned what clipping was like a month ago. So yeah, I completely understand what you're coming from. That it's hard. Like, this hobby, it's really hard to pick up. And it's been one of my most common complaints about astrophotography is that there are a lot of brilliant people, but I find that most of them suck at explaining in simple terms. Either that, or they tell you to throw money at your rig. I have a background in academia. I used to be. I am not an IT for day job. I am not a software developer. I actually have my original background was actually in cell and molecular biology. I was actually doing cancer research, and then I decided that, I didn't want to be a master of one, so I decided to change my career, and instead of going for a PhD, I went for an MBA instead, so I can actually understand what drives the world and economy and business. I just didn't want to know science, so that's my background. Not an IT, not a software developer. I have a science background that went on to more of a business route. Yeah. And so with my background and my time in science, I really value people that could teach, because I think if you're in the field long enough, yeah, you can get by with just jargons and everybody will understand you. But I think a true mark of brilliance is, being able to take complicated concepts and explain it in a manner that anybody else can understand it. Because I think then you're really making an impact in whatever field or whatever your expertise in. Because if you can pique an interest in somebody else by speaking their language, then you're really advancing, science or in this case, astrophotography. If this whole session was just level this, curve that, mask this, I don't think it will be very helpful for you guys. So that's why I think that's my complaint about astrophotography, is that there are a lot of brilliant people, but almost all of them suck at explaining, or they just tell you to throw money at your setup. I remember when I first started, I went on Cloudy forums or Cloudy Nights forum, and I asked people, what's a good beginner setup? What should I get first? So many responses were along the lines of, here, throw $5,000 at it. I mean, I'm sure I'm going to have a really good setup with $5,000, but can you explain to me, the whys and the hows and what each components do? Yeah. Yes, I am going to try to upload this. Maybe not right away. Maybe I want to edit it, but being as long as it is, I'm not sure if I want to edit it. I may just upload this raw as it is, with all the flaws and all the little technical difficulties that I had, and the fact that we spent the first 15 to 20 minutes dealing with my face. And George, yes, I always edit in 16-bit. I don't quite know how to navigate Photoshop in 32-bit, so I'm being lazy here, so I just sort of skip the whole 32-bit thing. And I haven't seen many people use 32 bits to edit as well, so yeah, just 16-bit. Yeah, you're very welcome, Caroline. I think this is kind of cool. It's full moon. Yeah, that sounds really expensive, but I think this is really cool. I may consider doing this once a month whenever there's a full moon, because I'm almost certain that under a full moon I won't be imaging much, and I'm sure most of you guys won't be imaging much either under a full moon. So I think it'll be kind of cool to just have a chat with like-minded individuals, and maybe I can do another tutorial of some sort. You are very welcome, DJ Reagan. Are you actually a DJ? I wonder if I put anyone to sleep. Because I kind of felt like I just talked over everybody, sort of mulled everyone to sleep. I hope that's not the case. Okay. All right. It's about you guys are having a film session over there. Hey, Dennis. Dude, mechanics. Man, You guys have my respect. I kind of work on cars, but I'm to the point where I really hate working on my cars, even though I love my cars. Yeah. So it's about 8:45 my time. If you guys want, I can stay on for another 15 minutes and chat or answer any other questions about Photoshop gear or just astrophotography in general. Or, if you guys had enough of me, we can end it pretty soon. Let me know if you guys have any more questions. Kodachrome slides. What is Kodachrome? It's more like as long as you guys can withstand hearing my stomach growling. Yeah, I think the bulk of the functionality needs to have Photoshop in 16-bit. Carlos, yeah, I'm gonna try to upload it. I'm not sure I'm gonna edit it because I don't think I want to edit a nearly 2 hours long video. I may just upload this like straight up raw. See, why is this? So this thing, I don't know if I muted the analytics, but this thing has been yelling at me since I started the stream. It's been warning me that my bitrate is out of whack. And then it says my stream is healthy, apparently. Yeah, one of these days I'm gonna fix this bitrate stuff, whatever this means. What about you guys? Do you guys have any favorite targets that you have lined up now that we're full swing into Galaxy season? All right, man. See you on Facebook. I for one don't really look forward to the Galaxy season because I live under Bordeaux 9 skies, so that means that I basically have to use a filter. All right, Dennis. Yeah, I'll put together something for the next full moon, possibly. But as I was saying, yeah, I don't really look forward to Galaxy season because, well, galaxies are really hard to capture. I think anytime that you're trying to capture broadband natural color, it's very difficult. And I live under Bordeaux 9 sky, so when I use filters, um, yeah, I do see the summer triangle early in the morning. But when I use filters, I lose some of the details. I lose some of the colors. And I don't think I can get away with this, but anytime I use a filter, um, I lose a little bit of the natural blues that a lot of the galaxies are putting off. But if I don't use a filter, then my image is basically a wash. So maybe I can do this to get rid of, because apparently my face or that little icon is back. So I can do this. But yeah, I'll try to make the Galaxy season work, but yeah, it's not my favorite. I already miss I already missed all the winter constellation and all the awesome nebula. Yeah. Do you guys have any favorite galaxies? All right, Carlos. Yeah, thanks for sticking around. Thanks for staying up until 1 a.m. Really appreciate it. I hope that you'll join us the next time, and look forward to more videos that I will be uploading. I've got one that I am starting to edit, so look for that. And if you guys haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. Let's see. I hear or I see some Facebook notifications. I wonder if people couldn't get to. Oh man, that's a lot. Yeah, so I don't like using. Okay. Yeah, I don't like using Facebook to set up an event, because apparently a lot of people have an issue logging on or seeing the event. So I think next time I'm just gonna make an announcement on Facebook, or on YouTube or something, because apparently people. Oh, I have a video for that. Bel Air Bandit. I have a video for that. If you look at my, it may have been the second video that I've done. Well, technically, all the videos I upload are just me imaging under a really high Bordeaux scale. Yeah, I'm in San Francisco, so we're in the same sky, if not worse. So basically, any video that you watch of me, it's gonna be under really bad skies. But the next one that I'm about to put up is going to be me trying to capture some of these galaxies using what I would call beginner level telescope. I'm going to be using my William Optics Space Cat with just 250 millimeters of focal length, and I'm going to try to capture a galaxies. And I just want to show people that galaxy season is kind of difficult because galaxies are so small, but you don't need to spend a lot of money. You don't need to go and buy a giant telescope just to see and capture galaxies. You can still do it with a smaller, lower focal length telescope. So hopefully that video will help other people as well. We can talk about it right now if you want. But I think that's a great idea that I will, I should make a video on, why filters are a challenge for galaxy season. But just briefly, I can talk about it right now. I think unless you're doing emission nebulae where you're purposely trying to isolate hydrogen alpha, all filters will diminish your image somewhat because you're purposely blocking out some form of light. So if at all possible, you want to image broadband targets with natural colors using no filter, if possible. But I think in this day of age, the fact that most of us either live in cities or live nearby a city, it's really hard to do no filter imaging unless you go to a dark sky. But going to a dark sky, that's another challenge on itself, because I don't know about you lugging a giant mount out into the middle of nowhere, because for most long exposures, like 2 minutes and up, you're going to need a beefy mount. I think that those portable star trackers, they're good up until 2 minutes, and anything beyond 2 minutes you need to guide, and to guide you need to have a laptop, and so the portability takes a hit the moment you go beyond 2 minutes of exposure time. So that's why I think there's a challenge, because if you live in a city, you pretty much have to use the filter. If you go to a dark sky, unless you're really strong and you can lug the giant rig all over the place, it's hard. And if you have a dark sky, I haven't experienced it myself, so maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but if you're under a really dark sky, I bet that when you go with no filter, you're going to get a ton of colors from these galaxies. And of course, you most likely cannot use dual narrowband filters for galaxies, because not many galaxies would have any hydrogen alpha or oxygen 3 for you to capture. So if you throw a dual narrowband filter in your one-shot color camera, I don't think you will get anything. So, and then there's the obvious challenge of focal length, because galaxies are really, really, really far away. So therefore they're really tiny in our night sky. So that's another challenge, optics and camera. Because, a giant telescope is expensive. It's unwieldy. I don't think anybody would take a giant telescope out in a dark sky. And then if you want to, I think you can still use a smaller telescope, but just crop way in. But if you do that, then you need to make sure that your camera and your sensor, it's a good one, with high resolution, so you're actually still retain details. Hey Remy. So you can still retain details, and oh, did you have a hard time? Sorry, but I will try to upload the video so that you can still watch the tutorial at your leisure. Now we're just sort of chatting. Yeah, somebody asked, Bel Air Bandit asked, the challenges of galaxy seasons and filters and such. And I'm just saying that, we sort of went over the filter stuff, and how, if you live in a city, you pretty much have to use the filter. But when you use the filter, you lose some of the natural colors from galaxies. And then the other challenge is the optics in your sensors. Galaxies are really small. You need to have a lot of focal length, and when you have a lot of focal length, your telescope is going to be giant and unwieldy. But you can compensate for that by having a really, really good camera and sensor. But those sensors are, they're expensive. So I think if you have a sort of beginner level small refractor, just make sure that your camera sensor has a lot of megapixels, so that even when you crop way in, you can still retain details. And I've got a video coming up that will demonstrate that it is still possible to image galaxies with something like a William Optics Space Cat or a Red Cat 51 with just 250 millimeters of focal length. That I'm editing that video right now. So yeah. Yeah, Galaxy season, it's I've been dreading it ever since I got into the hobby and I learned what objects are available to me when. I've been dreading the Galaxy season. Yeah. But I think when there's a will, there's a way. And I feel like whenever you're challenged, that's how you learn. You know, at least that's how I learned that, oh, you can use a camera sensor to help compensate for the lack of reach. But what does that entail, right? So I learned about megapixels and, you know, cropping in. So, yeah. Okay, what time is it now? All right. So it's about 9 p.m. my time. Unless you guys have any more questions, maybe we can call it now. I want to say thank you everybody for tuning in, especially if you're tuning in from another time zone. I know that it probably isn't, you know, it's not too easy for you guys to just, you know, tune in to a different time zone. So I really appreciate you guys sticking around. Boils down to best filter options. Honestly, I feel like you can pick any filter and they all will sort of make a certain level of improvement, but after that I feel like they all sort of plateau. But yeah, I want to thank you guys for joining. If you are already subscribed to my channel, really appreciate that. I'm loving the support. It's been really cool to see really encouraging and positive comments on some of the videos that I put out. I also don't think many people will be watching my videos because, you know, I'm just a beginner like the rest of you. And the whole point of me starting the YouTube channel is maybe I can help other people to start the hobby from one beginner to the next, and, you know, use beginner's term or beginner's talk, so to speak. But I'm really appreciating all the positive comments, and I'm going to try to put out a few more videos, despite the challenge of the Galaxy season. Yeah. So, thank you all for joining, and maybe I can make this a recurring theme. You know, whenever there's a full moon, I'll just go on YouTube Live and chat with all of you, or do another live tutorial. Thank you, Remy. Yeah. I don't know if I deserve it. I kind of feel like this is one of those things where if you talk loud enough, or if you talk about it long enough, somebody will believe you. But yeah, maybe we can do this on a regular basis. Maybe we can even call this the full moon, we ain't got nothing else to do, chat room. Yeah, this was fun. And for those of you who are joining late, or if you weren't able to catch on earlier and watch the tutorial, I'm going to do my best to upload this. And I'm not going to edit it. I'm not going to edit a 2-hour long video. So, you may be dealing with some earlier technical difficulty. But I guess that's all part of being live. So, oh, dude, you can do a lot with a DSLR, man. It is a constraint. I'm not going to lie. It is a constraint, but there's quite a bit that you can do. So Dynamite, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I hope this was helpful. So, all right. So I'll put out more videos. You guys can chat me. You guys can catch me on Facebook. I'll post more. I'll post more pictures, and there's definitely another video coming up. It basically marks the beginning of the Galaxy season, and I hope you guys will stay tuned for that. And once again, thank you to all of you who are already subscribed. If you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. It's going to help me grow this channel a lot, and I hope to help more people to get started in this awesome, amazing hobby. Yep, Caroline, I'll see you in the next full moon. Have a good night, everybody. Clear skies, and I hope you all are staying healthy. Take care.